Ever wish you could find, like those hidden gem stocks?
Yeah,
The ones that have the potential to just really take off.
absolutely.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into Cerence Inc.,
Okay.
ticker symbol CRNC,
Right.
to see if it could be one of those diamonds in the rough.
Interesting.
They're all about AI-powered virtual assistants for cars. And get this, they're already in over 475 million vehicles globally.
Wow. That's a really impressive number.
I know, it's pretty incredible.
What's particularly interesting is that Cerence is operating in this, booming field of automotive AI.
Right.
As cars become more connected and autonomous, the demand for like these seamless voice-controlled experiences
Yeah,
is only going to increase.
for sure. And to figure out if CRNC is worth investing in, we're going to use the wisdom of Warren Buffett
Okay.
and apply his, legendary investment principles.
Sounds good.
Well-
So to start things off, let's break down what Cerence actually does.
Right.
They mainly make money through software licenses and cloud-connected services, and they focus on creating that intuitive and interactive driving experience we all want. Imagine effortlessly controlling your car's features, with your voice receiving personalized responses,
Yeah.
and even having the car anticipate your needs on the road.
That's like having a co-pilot who can read your mind.
Right.
But how does Cerence stand out when there's so many competitors?
Right.
Especially with these big tech giants like Google and Amazon.
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
Cerence does have some advantages, though.
Okay.
For one, they're a global leader in this space, and they've got these long-standing relationships with all the major automakers. They also have deep expertise in AI technologies,
Okay.
particularly in things like speech recognition, natural language processing, and voice biometrics.
So they have the experience in the technology.
They do.
But what about their finances? Can they really compete with those giants?
Well, they've partnered with some pretty big names like NVIDIA and Microsoft. Interesting.
This gives them access to some cutting-edge AI capabilities, and it puts them in a broader ecosystem. Those partnerships are going to be really important in such a fast-changing field.
Yeah, for sure. It's like they're building their own AI Justice League or something.
Right, exactly.
But partnerships aside, what about the people running the show who's leading this company?
So their CEO, Brian Krzanich, has a really strong background in automotive software.
Okay.
However, he's relatively new to Cerence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he joined in years, so we have to watch and see how his leadership develops.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he handles such a competitive industry.
Definitely.
But he's not alone, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
What about the rest of the leadership team?
He's got a team of experienced executives working with him.
Okay.
For example, Nils Schantz, the Chief Technology and Product Officer, is really important in driving their AI innovation and their product development.
Makes sense.
And when you look at how Cerence is using their money, they seem to be making smart decisions. Okay, so tell me, what are their priorities?
Well, first, they're investing a lot in research and development, which is essential in a field like AI that's constantly changing.
Right.
They're also making strategic acquisitions
Okay.
to grow their range of products and reach more of the market.
So they're thinking long term.
Yes, and here's something that Warren Buffett would love.
Okay, tell me.
They're actively working to reduce their debt.
That shows they're being responsible with their finances.
Right.
But let's talk about the numbers. What did their financials look like?
Now, this is where things get a bit more complicated.
Okay, I'm listening.
They brought in $331.5 million in revenue in fiscal year 2024.
Which is impressive.
It is, however, their revenue has been up and down in recent years.
So it's been a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, you could say that.
What's causing that volatility?
Well, there are a few factors.
Okay.
The pandemic's impact on the auto industry definitely had an effect.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Supply chain disruptions also played a role. And then you have the constantly changing competition, which makes it harder to secure and keep contracts.
It's a tough market for sure.
Yes.
But are they making a profit? Are they actually in the black?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
They reported a non-GAAP net income of $56.1 million in 2024.
So that's a good sign, right?
It is, but we have to understand what non-GAAP means.
Okay.
It's basically a modified version of net income that doesn't include certain expenses.
So it could be making things look better than they actually are.
Exactly.
So we need to look deeper. What about their other profitability numbers?
Their operating income, which includes all of their operating expenses, actually showed that they lost a significant amount of money in 2024.
Oh, wow.
And their free cash flow, the cash they generate from their main operations has been inconsistent.
So that's something to keep an eye on.
It's a potential red flag.
So their profitability is sending mixed signals.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to really dig into their financial statements to see how healthy they are.
Exactly. And remember, Warren Buffett loves companies with a proven track record of making consistent and predictable earnings.
Right.
So the question is, does CRNC fit that bill?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Right.
And speaking of figuring things out, before we go any further with our CRNC deep dive, make sure to check out our YouTube channel for even more in-depth analysis and to suggest your own stock picks for future deep dives.
We love exploring new investment ideas.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, all the sources we use for this episode are listed in the description below.
Right, so you can do your own research and form your own opinions.
Exactly.
Look at the market sentiment and break down their ownership structure, all through the lens of Warren Buffett's investment wisdom.
All right, so let's move on to what the market is saying about CRNC.
Okay, let's tap into that collective wisdom and see what we can find.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, honestly.
Okay, how so?
We've seen some insider buying, which is generally a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that people who really know the company believe in its future.
Right.
But there's also been some insider selling.
Oh, so that's not so good.
Yeah, that can make investors a little uncertain.
It's like some insiders are saying buy, 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 and others are heading for the exits.
Yeah, it's a bit of a contradiction.
Could explain that.
It's hard to say for sure without knowing why they're making those decisions.
Right.
It could be personal financial stuff, or maybe they're trying to diversify their portfolios, or maybe they just disagree about what the company's future holds.
Interesting. So even those on the inside have mixed feelings.
It seems that way.
What about the analysts? What are they saying?
Analyst ratings are also kind of split.
Really?
Yeah, some analysts are optimistic about Cerence's technology and their position in the market. They see potential for good growth in automotive AI. But others are more cautious, especially because of those inconsistent financials we talked about.
Right, that makes sense.
For example, Zacks, a well-known investment research firm, gave CRNC a hold rating.
Oh, so they're basically saying wait and see.
Exactly.
So not a glowing review, but not a warning sign either.
Right. It's somewhere in between.
Is there anything coming up that could give us more information about where CRNC is headed?
Actually, yes. Cerence is going to be presenting at the upcoming Needham Growth Conference.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It could be a great opportunity to hear about their strategic plans and their view of the industry. Maybe we'll even get a peek at their financial projections.
Okay, I'll definitely be watching for that.
Now let's take a look at CRNC's ownership structure.
Okay, so who owns this company?
This can often tell us who believes in the company's success.
Right.
One thing that jumps out is that there's a lot of institutional ownership in CRNC.
So what does that mean?
It means that big institutions like mutual funds, hedge funds, and pension funds own a big chunk of the company's shares.
Oh, so the big money is invested in CRNC. Does that mean they're confident about the company's future?
It usually means they've done their homework and they see potential value.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that institutions have different motivations and goals than individual investors.
Right, they might be playing a different game.
Exactly.
So what about insider ownership? How much do the executives and board members own?
Well, this is where things get a little more interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Insider ownership in CRNC is actually pretty low.
That's unexpected.
Yeah, it means that the people closest to the business own a smaller percentage of shares compared to those big institutions.
So does that mean they're not as confident in the company?
It's something to consider for sure.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be the first ones to invest if they thought the company was going to do well.
You would, but there could be other reasons for this.
Like what?
Well, they might be focused on attracting those institutional investors we talked about.
Okay.
And some executives might get stock options as part of their pay, which they can't sell right away. Also, insider buying and selling can go up and down, so it's something we need to keep an eye on.
Good point. So we've talked about CRNC's business, their financials, how the market feels about them, and who owns the company.
We have.
But let's bring it back to Warren Buffett.
Okay.
What questions would he be asking if you were looking at CRNC?
Well, Buffett is all about understanding the basics of a business. He'd really dig into CRNC's business model, their operations, their revenue, and who they're competing with.
He wants to know the whole story.
Yeah, remember his famous saying, never invest in a business you can't understand?
Yeah, that's a good one.
So he'd be looking closely at their financials. He'd be analyzing their revenue, their profits, and their cash flow.
He wants to see that they can make money over the long haul.
Exactly, not just a quick win.
And he wouldn't just focus on the numbers, right?
No, he'd also be checking out the management team.
Mm-hmm.
Buffett always says it's important to invest in companies with leaders you can trust.
Right.
So he'd be looking at their track record, how they make decisions about spending money, and how well they handled challenges and opportunities.
So, like, he's looking for a captain who can steer the ship through any storm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So let's think about CRNC using Buffett's ideas.
Okay.
Based on what we know, do you think CRNC has what it takes to be a good investment?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's not an easy one to answer.
I know it's complicated.
CRNC is definitely in an industry that's growing fast, and their AI assistants could change how we drive.
But
their financial performance has been a bit shaky, and it's hard to know if they can beat out those huge tech companies.
So there's potential, but also risk.
Exactly.
It sounds like CRNC could be a good investment for the long term, but only if it fits with your own goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Right. It all depends on your individual situation.
And as always, we want to remind our listeners that all the sources we use for this deep dive are listed in the description below.
You can go check them out.
Yeah, we encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions.
Investing is a personal decision.
Absolutely, it's your money.